One day, I came home and heard laughter in my living room. My daughter-in-law was showing the house to a buyer. I thought about selling it, Mom. After all, you've already lived your life, she replied calmly. And you are just starting to ruin yours. The silence hit like a slap in the face. She went pale. I am so happy you are here. If you are watching this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me where you are listening to my story from in the comments. I want to know how far our stories have traveled. I will never forget the sound of that laughter. It was Tuesday afternoon when I returned from my doctor's appointment. I had barely closed the front door when I heard it. A strange laugh bouncing off the walls that I myself had raised 35 years ago. A laugh that didn't belong to me, in a house that did. I left my purse in the foyer. My hands were trembling not from fear, but from something I couldn't yet name. I walked slowly toward the living room, every step on the solid hardwood floor I had chosen plank by plank, and then I saw them. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, was standing by the bay window, pointing at the backyard with that look of ownership she had perfected over the last few months. Beside her, a man in a gray suit was taking photos with his phone, a man I had never seen in my life. The finishes are original, she was saying with a bright smile. Look at these cathedral ceilings. This natural light is a real gem of a property. I froze in the doorframe. The stranger nodded, jotting something down in a notebook. And how much are you asking? Vanessa didn't even blink. At $680,000. It's a fair price for the location and the lot size. $680,000, the exact value of my home, the figure that only appeared in my private tax documents. I felt the air thicken. Then she saw me. Her eyes met mine for a split second, and in that instant, something in her expression shifted. It wasn't shame, it was calculation. She assessed me what to say, how to get out of this. "Oh, Mom," she said with a voice that was too sweet. "I didn't hear you come in." I didn't answer. I just held her gaze while the stranger extended his hand to me. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Mr. Henderson. I came to see the property." My mouth spoke on its own. To see my property. Vanessa let out a nervous laugh. "Well, you see, I thought it would be a good idea to explore options." She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice as if entrusting me with a secret. "After all, you've already lived your life, Mom. This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it would be better to sell it so we can all enjoy that money?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Henderson coughed uncomfortably, looking between Vanessa and me, as if he had just realized he had walked into a minefield. But I hadn't. I tore my eyes away from her, from this woman who arrived at my house 2 years ago, asking for a roof over her head, who slept in my linens, who ate from my plates, who swore in front of my son that she would love him for richer or poorer. "You've already lived your life." Those 5 words buzzed in my head like angry bees. I took a deep breath. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks. Not from embarrassment, but from something more primitive, more ancient, something that had been dormant in me for too long. When I spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "And you," I paused, letting every word drop like a stone into still water, "are just starting to ruin yours." Vanessa blinked. The smile froze on her face. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat myself. I just turned to Mr. Henderson, who was already putting his notebook away with evident haste. "Mr. Henderson, I apologize that you've wasted your time," I said with icy courtesy. "This house is not for sale. It never has been, and whoever told you otherwise has absolutely no right to it." The man nodded quickly, murmuring apologies as he headed for the door. Vanessa tried to stop him, but it was too late. The front door closed with a dry click, and then we were alone. Vanessa turned toward me, and for the first time since I met her, I saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't regret, it was barely contained fury. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she hissed. "I was only trying to help. This house is falling apart. You can't maintain it anymore." "And Andrew and I." "Andrew? And you?" I interrupted her. "Live here because of my generosity. You eat my food, sleep under my roof, and now I find you trying to sell what doesn't belong to you." She went pale, completely pale. "I didn't. I just wanted." "What did you want, Vanessa?" My voice remained serene, but every word came out sharp as a scalpel. To take my home while I'm still breathing? To leave me with nothing because you decided I'm no longer of value? No, she replied, her lips trembling. I walked toward her, and although I am much shorter than she is, in that moment, I felt I was looking down at her. This conversation isn't over, I whispered. But I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Pray that your husband doesn't find out about this before I decide what to do with you. I turned around and walked up the stairs to my master bedroom. My legs could barely support me, but I couldn't let her see that. I couldn't let her know that inside, I was crumbling. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed where I slept with my husband for 30 years, where I cared for him in his final days, where I cried over his death until I ran out of tears. And only then, in the silence of my room, did I let the trembling in my hands spread through my whole body. You've already lived your life. How did she dare? How could she look at me and decide my time was up, that I didn't deserve the very roof I built with my own hands? I clenched my fists in my lap because that was the problem. Vanessa didn't know who I was. She didn't know that this house wasn't just walls and windows. It was my work, my design, my sacrifice. And worst of all, she didn't know how far I was capable of going to protect it, but she was about to find out. Downstairs, I heard hurried footsteps, a door opening, the voice of Andrew, my son, asking what had happened, and Vanessa's shrill voice inventing her version of the facts. I stood up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden I planted with my own hands, the magnolia tree I planted when Andrew was born, the wrought iron bench where my husband and I drank coffee every morning. This wasn't just my house, it was my entire life, and no one, absolutely no one, was going to take it from me. If this story is touching your heart and you want to know how it ends, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single chapter, because what comes next, nobody expected. I rested my forehead against the cold glass of the window. Vanessa had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She just didn't know it yet. That night, I didn't go down for dinner. I heard the soft knocks on my door, Andrew's voice asking if I was okay, saying we needed to talk. But I didn't answer. Because if I opened that door, if I saw his face, I might say things I would later regret. Instead, I sat in the armchair by the window, watching the shadows in the garden as the night swallowed the colors of the day. And there, in that silence, I did something I hadn't done in years. I remembered. I remembered the woman I used to be. My name is Susan Miller. I am 68 years old. But there was a time when 68 seemed like a distant eternity. There was a time when nothing could stop me. I closed my eyes and saw myself at 33, my black hair tied back in a ponytail, hands stained with ink and plaster, leaning over a drafting table in a small office that barely had windows. It was 1990. I had just graduated as an architect in a world that still looked strangely at women with hard hats and blueprints under their arms. My husband, David, worked as an accountant for a mid-sized firm. Andrew was barely 3 years old, running barefoot through our rented house, a small 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas, where the upstairs neighbors made so much noise it sounded like they were moving furniture at midnight. Susan, David would tell me as we drank coffee in the early hours of the morning, someday we'll have our own house. One that you design, one that is just ours. I would smile and nod, but inside I thought, not someday, soon. Because I was never one of those who wait. For 5 years, I worked 3 jobs at once. By day, I designed houses at a firm where they paid me half of what my male colleagues earned. In the afternoons, I taught technical drawing at a high school, and at night, after putting Andrew to bed, I locked myself in the dining room to design freelance projects for small construction companies that needed cheap, fast blueprints. David never asked me to stop. He never said, "That's enough," or "Rest a little." He took care of Andrew when I had deadlines. He made me tea when my eyes could no longer focus on the numbers. He massaged my shoulders when the weight of worry bent my back. "You are the strongest woman I know," he would whisper in my ear. And I believed him, because I had to. In 1995, after 5 years of sleeping, no more than 4 hours a night, of saving every dollar that came into the house, of turning down outings, parties, and vacations, we finally did it. We bought the land. It wasn't huge, just about a 1/4 acre in a quiet subdivision on the outskirts of Austin, which back then still looked almost rural, but it was ours. I remember the day I stepped on that piece of earth for the first time. It still smelled of recent rain. There was tall grass and rocks everywhere. David took my hand and asked, "What do you see?" I smiled, closed my eyes, and saw it all. I saw the walls rising. I saw the windows letting in the morning light. I saw a backyard where Andrew could play. I saw a large kitchen where we would cook on Sundays. I saw a library where we would keep the books we loved. "I see our life," I replied. And then I started to build it. I designed every inch of that house, every angle, every window. I chose the orientation of the house to catch the morning sun in the bedrooms. I calculated the ceiling height so the heat wouldn't accumulate in the Texas summer. I designed deep closets, a spacious pantry, bathrooms with natural ventilation. But I didn't just design, I also built. Yes, me, personally. Because we didn't have the money to pay for all the labor. So I learned. I learned to mix cement, to lay brick, to level floors. I learned to use the trowel, the sander, the hammer. My hands, which previously only knew pencils and rulers, filled with calluses and scars. David worked with me every weekend. Andrew played among the sandbags, building his own castles while we raised the walls of ours. It took us 3 years. 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears. 3 years of nights where I fell asleep with aching hands. 3 years of waking up before dawn to check that everything kept moving forward. But in 1998, we finally moved in. I remember exactly how I felt the first night I slept in this house. I was lying on the floor of the master bedroom because we didn't have a new bed yet. I looked at the ceiling I had planned myself, touched the walls I had helped raise, and I cried. I cried so much that David got scared. "What's wrong?" he asked, hugging me. "Nothing," I whispered. "It's just that we did it. We really did it." That house wasn't just bricks and concrete. It was living proof that when a woman decides something, the entire universe has to step aside. The years passed. Andrew grew up within these walls. He learned to ride a bike in this driveway. He celebrated birthdays in this living room. He brought home friends, girlfriends, dreams. David and I grew old here. We celebrated anniversaries, mourned losses, planted trees, repainted rooms. Every corner of this house held a piece of us. And then, 8 years ago, David got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 6 months to live, the doctor said. He lived 11 months, during which this house became a hospital, a refuge, a temple. And I became a nurse, a warrior, an anticipated widow. I cared for him right here in our bedroom, in the same bed where we slept together for 30 years. I gave him his medicine. I bathed him when he could no longer do it himself. I read him his favorite books. I held his hand while the pain split him in two. And he died here, in my arms, looking at me with those eyes that had seen me raise empires from nothing. His last words were, "Take care of it. It's yours, too." He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the house, because he knew. He knew this house was more than a place. It was my legacy, my masterpiece, my proof that Susan Miller had existed and left a mark on this world. After his death, Andrew wanted me to move in with him. "Mom, this house is too big for you alone," he would say. "Come live with us." But I refused. How could I abandon the only place where I still felt David? How could I leave the trees we planted together, the rooms we painted, the garden where I scattered his ashes? I stayed alone, yes, but at home. And now, 27 years after finishing it, 35 since I bought the land, someone walked into my living room and decided that none of that mattered, that I had lived enough, that it was time to sell. I opened my eyes. Night had fallen completely. The city lights flickered in the distance like fallen stars. I got up from the armchair. My knees protested, but I ignored them. I walked to the closet and took out an old shoebox I kept on the highest shelf. Inside were the original blueprints of this house, yellowed, folded, stained with coffee, tears, and construction dust. I unfolded the plans on the bed. I ran my fingers over the lines I had drawn decades ago. Every measurement, every calculation, every dream come true. According to the current market, this house was worth $680,000, but to me, it was priceless. And if Vanessa thought she could snatch it from me with fake smiles and unknown buyers, she was very wrong. Because I am Susan Miller, the woman who built her own castle. and castles do not surrender without a battle. I folded the plans carefully, put them back in their box, and then did something I hadn't done since David's funeral. I knelt by the bed and prayed. I didn't pray for patience. I didn't pray for forgiveness. I prayed for strength, because I was going to need it. The next morning, I went down to breakfast as if nothing had happened. Vanessa was in the kitchen making coffee. When she saw me enter, she visibly tensed. Her hands paused over the coffee maker. "Good morning," I said in a neutral, almost friendly voice. She blinked, confused. "Good morning, Mom," she replied. I said nothing else. I simply took out my favorite mug, the blue ceramic one David gave me for our 10th anniversary, and waited my turn to pour coffee. The silence in the kitchen was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Andrew walked in a few minutes later with that face of a man who slept poorly and woke up worse. My son, my only son, 43 years old, a civil engineer, with hair already thinning at the crown and those wrinkles around his eyes that made him look older than he was. He looked at me as if expecting an explosion, but I just smiled. "Did you sleep well, son?" His bewilderment was evident. "Yes, Mom." "And you?" "As always," I answered, taking a sip of my coffee. "I'm going out for a few hours. I have some errands to run." Vanessa and Andrew exchanged a quick look. She seemed relieved. He looked cautious. I didn't give them time to ask anything else. I took my keys, my purse, and left the house without looking back. But I didn't go out to run errands. I went out to remember. I drove to a small coffee shop downtown that I used to visit with David when we needed to escape the noise of the world. I sat at a table by the window, ordered an Americano, and let my mind travel back 2 years. It had only been 2 years since Andrew arrived with Vanessa. It was an October afternoon. I was pruning the roses in the front yard when I heard a car pull up. There was my son, with a suitcase in each hand and a strange woman by his side. "Mom," he said with that nervous smile he always wore when he knew he was about to ask for something big. "I want you to meet Vanessa, my girlfriend." Girlfriend. Not even fiancé, just girlfriend. Vanessa was 32. Andrew was 41, then 9 years difference. Long, perfectly straight black hair, impeccable nails painted carmine red, tight clothes that screamed designer without actually being designer. And that smile. God. That smile looked rehearsed in front of a mirror. "A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Miller," she said with a soft, almost childish voice. "Andrew has told me so much about you." I shook her hand cold, too cold for a warm Texas day. "The pleasure is mine," I replied, and looked at my son. "Are you coming in, or just visiting?" Andrew cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we need a favor." "Of course you do," I said in silence, already knowing what was coming. It turned out Andrew had lost his job 3 months prior. "A corporate restructuring," they told him. "Last one hired, first one fired." And Vanessa, as he told me, worked in sales, but was between jobs. Between jobs. What an elegant way to say unemployed. "We need to stay here for a while," Andrew said without looking me in the eye. "Just until I find something new. A couple of months, tops. A couple of months." I should have said no. I should have asked why they didn't ask her family for help. I should have set clear rules, boundaries, specific dates. But I looked at my son, at this man I had raised, and saw something in his eyes that scared me. Desperation. "It's fine," I told him. "You can stay." Vanessa smiled, a smile of victory she tried to disguise as gratitude. "Thanks, Mom. You don't know what this means to us." Mom. She was already calling me that, without even being married to him. The first few days were tolerable. Vanessa was polite, attentive, helped with cleaning, made breakfast, asked if I needed anything from the grocery store. Andrew spent mornings sending out resumes and doing video interviews. In the afternoons, he went out with Vanessa to see the neighborhood, or they locked themselves in their room. I tried to give them space. After all, they were a couple. They needed privacy. But then the changes began. Small at first, almost imperceptible. Vanessa started reorganizing the kitchen. "It's more practical this way, Mom," she said, while moving my pots from their place. She changed the living room curtains without consulting me. "The other ones were very old," she justified. She brought in a new sofa she had bought on sale and relegated my favorite armchair to the basement. "This one is more modern," she assured me. Every time I protested, Andrew intervened. Mom, it's not a big deal. She's just trying to help. Help by erasing my presence from my own home. But I stayed quiet because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the one who complains, who meddles, who makes drama over everything. So I swallowed my discomfort and smiled. What was supposed to be a couple of months turned into 6, then a year, then a year and a half. Andrew got temp jobs, but nothing stable. Vanessa kept looking, but never found anything that convinced her. And meanwhile, my house ceased to be mine. Vanessa started inviting friends over without telling me. They celebrated birthdays for people I didn't even know in my living room. They used my good china, the set I only brought out for Christmas. They left dirty dishes in the sink, waiting for me to wash them. When I asked them to help with expenses, Andrew looked at me with a sad puppy face. Mom, you know we're short on cash. As soon as the situation improves, I promise that. But things never improved. And every day, Vanessa behaved less like a guest. She started calling my house our house, my garden our garden, my living room our living room. When her friends asked, she said naturally, "Yes, we live here. It's a family home," as if I were just a tenant in my own property. Andrew seemed blind, or worse, he seemed not to want to see. One night I confronted him. It had been 6 months since Vanessa redecorated my dining room without even consulting me. "Son," I said when we were alone, "we need to talk." He sighed as if he already knew what was coming, as if he were tired of hearing it. "Mom, please, don't start." "Start what? Defending what is mine? Asking for a minimum of respect?" "Vanessa respects you," he said. But his voice sounded hollow, as if repeating something rehearsed. "She just wants the house to look nice, to be a pleasant place for everyone." Before she arrived, everything was peaceful. Andrew closed his eyes. "Mom, don't do this, please." "Do what?" "Remind you that this house is mine? That you are here because of my generosity?" "I know," Andrew exploded suddenly. "Do you think I don't know? Do you think she doesn't remind me every day with that way she looks at me, like she's doing me a favor?" I froze. "Vanessa doesn't remind me of anything," he continued, his voice shaking. "She just acts as if she had a right to be here. And she has it because I gave it to her." He ran his hands over his face. "Mom, I love her, and I need you to make an effort to get along with her. I love her." Those 3 words explained everything. My son was so in love, so blind, that he couldn't see what I saw with crystal clarity. Vanessa didn't love this house, nor did she love him. She loved the security, the comfort, the free roof. But I couldn't tell him that. Because when you tell a man that the woman he loves is just using him, he doesn't listen, he just starts hating you. So I swallowed my words, nodded, and let him believe he had won. But that night, lying in my bed, I knew something had broken between my son and me, something we might never be able to repair. And 3 months later, there I was, sitting in a downtown cafe drinking a cold Americano, remembering how I had reached this point, how I had allowed a stranger to enter my life and dismantle it piece by piece, how I had lost my son without realizing the exact moment it happened. I paid the bill, left the cafe, and as I walked to my car, I made a decision. I wasn't going to win my son back by arguing with him. I would win him back by showing him the truth, and for that, I needed proof. Termites don't destroy a house in a single day. They do it slowly, patiently, one splinter at a time, until one day you discover the foundation is hollow and it's too late. That was how Vanessa took my life, not with a single blow, but with 1,000 small cuts that at first seemed insignificant. I went home that afternoon determined to observe, to document, to look with new eyes at what I had been ignoring for months, and what I saw froze my blood. I entered through the front door, and the smell was the first thing that hit me. It wasn't the usual aroma, that mix of old wood and garden flowers I loved so much. It was perfume, a sweet, heavy perfume that saturated the air like a toxic fog. Vanessa had bought one of those electric diffusers and plugged it in the entrance. "French vanilla," the label said. I hated vanilla. I walked to the kitchen. There she was, cooking something on the stove. When she saw me enter, her smile was instantaneous. Too instantaneous. "Mom!" "Good thing you're here." I made chicken with green salsa for lunch. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten anything since the morning coffee. "Smells good," I said, approaching the stove. But then I saw the plates on the counter. 2 plates. Only 2, generously served with fluffy white rice, fresh salad, and warm rolls in a basket. "And for me?" I asked with a casual voice. Vanessa didn't even look uncomfortable. "Oh, I didn't know what time you'd be back, Mom. But there's more in the pot. Help yourself. Help yourself." As if I were a guest arriving late for dinner, I approached the stove. The pot was almost empty. Only a small piece of chicken remained, swimming in a watery sauce. No rice, no salad, the leftovers. She was offering me the leftovers in my own house. I said nothing. I served what little remained on a plate. I took a stale slice of bread from the package on top of the fridge, not from the basket with the warm rolls. And I sat at the breakfast bar, not at the dining table, because Vanessa and Andrew were already there, eating, laughing, talking about a show they were watching together. I ate alone, in silence, looking out the window at the garden I had planted with my hands. The chicken was cold. That night, I decided not to sleep. I waited until I heard the doors close, until the hallway lights went out, until the house was wrapped in that deep, midnight silence. Then I went down barefoot, like a thief in my own home, and started searching. First, the living room. The furniture Vanessa had brought wasn't on sale, as she had said. I checked the tag, still stuck to the bottom. A luxury department store. Each piece cost over $2,000. What money had she bought them with? If she was supposedly unemployed? I opened the drawers of the new cabinet. Bills. Piles of bills in Vanessa's name, Vanessa Cole. Credit cards. 4 different ones, all maxed out. I took photos with my phone. Every bill. Every statement I found hidden among magazines and papers. Vanessa owed $12,000 on one card, $8,000 on another, $5,000 on the third, and shawu, ling ling ling. Explain. Actor experience. Thanks for watching. An example. Annerly, iniginal, loc, absolute, b, endus, it's commentad, and evented. 15, 000 on the last. 40,000 of debt, asterisk, and I thought she had no money. I kept looking. In the study that had once been David's, now converted into Vanessa's office, I found something else. Printed emails. Conversations with a lawyer named Attorney Anderson, dated 2 months ago. Dear Miss Cole, in response to your inquiry regarding obtaining power of attorney in the event of the owner's incapacitation, I inform you that, my breath hitched. Owner's incapacitation. Me. She was investigating how to declare me incompetent, how to take legal control of my own house away from me. My hands shook so much, I almost dropped the papers. I photographed everything, every line, every incriminating paragraph, and there was more. A real estate appraisal done 3 weeks ago by a company I had never hired. $680,000, the document said, with a handwritten note in the margin, interested buyer. Deposit of $20,000. She had already sold my house, or at least she had already received money on account for a sale I hadn't authorized. I went up the stairs with trembling legs. I locked myself in my bedroom, connected my phone to my old laptop, and transferred all the photos. There was the evidence. Clear, irrefutable. But a part of me still couldn't believe it. Still wanted to think that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe Vanessa had an explanation. How naive I was. The following days were a silent nightmare. I started noticing things I had ignored before, things I had convinced myself weren't a big deal. Like the way Vanessa organized gatherings at my house without telling me. Her friends would arrive in the afternoons, settle in the living room as if it were theirs, drink my wine, use my bathroom, leave lipstick marks on my crystal glasses. Once I dared to complain. Vanessa, I would have liked you to let me know you were going to have visitors. She smiled with that fake sweetness I knew too well. Oh, Mom, I thought you wouldn't mind. Since you're always in your room, we don't even bother you. In my room. As if I were an old woman confined in a nursing home. Or like that day I came back from the supermarket and found my door locked from the outside. Why is my bedroom door locked? I asked, with the grocery bags still in my hands. Vanessa came out of the kitchen drying her hands. Oh, I was cleaning and didn't want dust from the hallway to get in. It's open now. A lie. When I went in, everything was exactly the same. She hadn't cleaned anything. She had been looking for something. Documents. Probably the house deed. I started keeping everything under lock and key, my passport, my important papers, the house deeds that I previously kept in the study. And then, the worst began. The dinners. Vanessa started cooking elaborate meals for herself and Andrew. Steaks, fresh pasta, desserts. But for me, there was always an excuse. "Oh, Mom, I thought you had already eaten. I made just a little because Andrew and I are on a diet. There's a bit of lunch in the fridge. You can heat it up." Always leftovers. Always cold. Always alone. One night, Andrew and Vanessa were dining on baked salmon with roasted potatoes and caprese salad. I ate a ham sandwich I made myself, sitting at the kitchen island while they laughed and toasted with wine in the dining room. My dining room, my wine, my house. And me, eating alone like a beggar. The worst part was that Andrew didn't even notice, or didn't want to notice. When she had guests, Vanessa had a perfect technique. "The house is gorgeous," her friends would say. "Thank you," she would reply, as if she had built it with her own hands. "We've done so many improvements since we arrived," Vanessa said, smiling in front of her friends, as if talking about her house. Her house. And if I came down while they had guests, she threw me that tense, rehearsed smile. "Mom, do you need something? We're in the middle of a gathering." As if I were interrupting. As if I had no right to be in my own living room. One afternoon, one of her friends asked me directly, "And you are Andrew's mom?" Before I could answer, Vanessa intervened with a cloying voice. "Yes, she lives here with us. She's getting on in years and needs company, right, Mom? She lives here with us." As if they were the owners. As if I were the one living on charity. I smiled, nodded, and went up to my room with my heart in pieces. That night, lying in my bed, looking at the ceiling I had designed myself, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't sadness, it was rage. A deep, ancient rage born from some dark place in my chest and spreading like fire through my veins. How had I allowed this? How did I let this woman enter my life and tear it apart piece by piece? How had I allowed her to treat me like trash in my own home? But the rage wasn't just against Vanessa. It was against myself. For being a coward, for staying silent, for smiling when I should have screamed, for being the good mother-in-law when I should have been the owner of my life. I got out of bed, walked to the mirror. The woman looking back at me was 68 years old, wrinkles around the eyes, gray hairs peeking through the dye, age spots on her hands. But she also had something else. She had the look of someone who had built empires, who had raised houses with her own hands, who had survived losses that would have destroyed others. "Enough," I told my reflection. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt the woman in the mirror believed me. There are moments in life when everything changes in a second. A medical diagnosis, a midnight call, a door opening to reveal something you shouldn't see. For me, that moment arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after discovering Vanessa's debts. Andrew had left early for a job interview. Vanessa was still sleeping, or so I thought. I went down to the kitchen to make coffee when I saw the envelope. It was on the dining table, a large manila envelope with a notary's logo printed in the corner. Notary Public. Harold Carty, Esquire. The envelope was open. I should have left it there. I should have respected her privacy. I should have, but it was no longer the time for should-haves. I took out the documents, and what I read left me breathless. It was a power of attorney drafted in the name of Vanessa Cole, granting her broad powers to manage, sell, mortgage, and perform any act of ownership over the property located at 47 Cedar Lane. My house. My address. But the most terrifying part wasn't that. It was the signature at the bottom of the document. A shaky, irregular signature that was supposedly mine. Only I had never signed that paper. My hands shook so much I almost dropped the pages. There were more documents. A letter from the notary requesting the appearance of Mrs. Susan Miller to ratify the granted power, dated 2 weeks ago. And a handwritten response, supposedly in my handwriting. "Due to health reasons, I cannot appear in person. I authorize my daughter-in-law, Vanessa Cole, to proceed on my behalf." My handwriting, or a nearly perfect imitation. I felt the walls closing in on me. Vanessa wasn't just planning to sell the house. She had already forged documents to do it legally. I photographed everything. Every page. Every fake signature. Every incriminating line. And then I found something else. A copy of my official ID, but not my current driver's license. It was an old one I had lost 2 years ago and reported missing. How had she gotten it? The answer hit me like a punch. She had been going through my trash, my drawers, my old documents stored in basement boxes. She had been planning this for months. The sound of footsteps upstairs paralyzed me. I put everything back inside the envelope, exactly as I had found it. I went up the stairs trying to walk normally, though my heart beat so hard I felt it was going to burst out of my chest. I needed help. Real help. That same afternoon, without saying anything to anyone, I drove to the office of Richard Rick Sterling. Rick had been my partner on 3 architectural projects over 20 years ago. He was an architect, but also an attorney specializing in real estate. A man of nearly 70, with completely white hair and gray eyes so sharp nothing escaped them. When his secretary showed me in, Rick stood up immediately with a big smile. "Susan, how many years has it been?" he said, hugging me with that genuine affection only old friends know how to give. "To what do I owe the honor?" I sat across from his desk, and unable to hold it in anymore, I broke. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since David's funeral. I cried for the humiliation, for the betrayal, for all the rage I had been accumulating for months. Rick said nothing. He just passed me a box of tissues and waited in silence. When I could finally speak, I told him everything. I showed him the photos on my phone. His expression changed with every image, from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to a contained fury. "This is forgery of documents, Susan," he said finally with a deep voice. "It's fraud. Attempted dispossession. That woman could go to prison for this." "I know," I whispered. "Does Andrew know anything about this?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. He's blinded. He thinks she loves him." Rick leaned back in his chair, looking at me with eyes that had seen too much in his career. "Susan, you have to act fast. If she is contacting notaries, if she already has forged documents, she is much closer to achieving her goal than you imagine." "What do I do?" I asked, feeling the air running out. "First, we go to that notary. We go talk to Mr. Carty and make it clear that you have never granted any legal power that will invalidate any transaction she attempts to initiate." "And then?" I asked quietly. Rick paused. "Then you will have to decide how far you want to go, because this isn't fixed with a conversation. This is a legal battle, and your son is going to be caught in the middle." His words fell like stones in my stomach. "My son, my only son." "I need to think," I said. "Think fast," he warned me. "Every day that passes, she gains time to complete her plan." I left his office with my head spinning, but before going home, I did something else. I drove to the office of Notary Public Harold Carty. It was a small building in a downtown office park, 2nd floor, a gold plaque on the door. "Harold Carty, Notary Public." I took a deep breath and entered. The receptionist greeted me with a professional smile. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with Mr. Carty. It is urgent." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's about a power of attorney that I supposedly granted and never signed." The smile disappeared. "One moment, please." She disappeared into an inner office. Minutes later, a man in his 50s came out. Impeccable suit, serious expression. "Mrs. Miller, please, come in." He led me to his office and closed the door. "Tell me what is happening." I explained everything. I showed him the photos, showed him my current ID. His face grew paler and paler. "Ma'am," he said finally, "I have never processed any power of attorney in your name. I have never received documents from you." "But the envelope had your notary's logo," I said. "Yes, but those documents are fake. Someone created them using my letterhead, my seal, my signature. It is all a forgery." The world stopped. "Are you sure?" "Completely. And this is extremely serious. Not only are they trying to steal your property, Mrs. Miller, they are also implicating my notary office in a fraud." He stood up and began pacing. "I need to file a formal complaint. And you do too. A police report." "This is a federal offense, Mrs. Miller," the notary said gravely. "Forgery of public documents, use of fake official seals, attempted wire fraud. The person responsible could face 4 to 12 years in prison." I felt the ground move beneath my feet. 12 years. Vanessa could go to prison for 12 years. And Andrew. My God, Andrew would be devastated. "I need time," I whispered. "Time to talk to my son first." The notary looked at me with compassion. "I understand, but don't delay. These people don't stop at the first attempt. If this plan fails, they will look for another, and another, until they succeed." I left there with my legs shaking. I sat in the car not knowing how much time passed, unable to start it, unable to move. Vanessa wasn't just an opportunist. She wasn't a moocher or a garden variety manipulator. She was a professional criminal, a scammer who had chosen my family as her next victim. And my son slept every night next to that woman, without imagining who she really was. I started the engine. I drove back home on autopilot. When I arrived, it was already dark. The living room lights were on. The television could be heard. I entered in silence. Vanessa and Andrew were on the sofa, watching a movie, sharing a blanket, eating popcorn, the perfect image of a happy couple. Vanessa saw me and smiled. That smile I now recognized for what it was. A mask. "Mom, want some popcorn?" I felt sick. My voice came out surprisingly steady. "Sleep well," Andrew said, without taking his eyes off the screen. I walked up the stairs slowly, locked my bedroom door, and there, alone, I took my phone and dialed Rick's number. "Rick," I said as soon as he answered, "I need you to do something else. I need you to investigate Vanessa Cole. Everything. Where she comes from, what she has done before, if she has a record." "You suspect this isn't the first time?" he asked. "I suspect it," I replied, my voice breaking. "I suspect my son and I are just her most recent victims." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'll do it. I have a contact who can help us. But Susan, be prepared for what we might find." "I'm already prepared," I lied, because in reality, I had no idea what I was about to discover, nor how deep the abyss was into which Vanessa had dragged my family. 3 days later, Rick called me. "Susan, I need you to come to my office, now." His voice sounded tense, almost urgent. "Did you find something?" "Not over the phone." "Come now." He hung up before I could answer. I told Vanessa I was going to the doctor. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Have a good time, Mom." The drive to Rick's office felt eternal. Every traffic light, every turn, every minute dragged as if time were crawling. When I finally arrived, Rick was waiting for me. His expression was somber, more than ever. "Sit down," he told me, closing the door. On the desk was a thick manila folder overflowing with papers. "My contact is a private investigator," Rick began. I gave him Vanessa Cole's full name and asked him to check everything. Criminal record, credit history, social media, everything. He fell silent for a moment, as if looking for the way to say what was coming. "Rick, you're scaring me, and you should be." He opened the folder. "Susan, Vanessa Cole isn't who she says she is." My heart stopped. "To start," he continued, taking out several documents, "her full name is Vanessa Cogan, 34 years old, born in Houston. But there is something Andrew definitely doesn't know." He placed a document in front of me, a marriage certificate. "Vanessa is married." The world tilted beneath my feet. "What?" "Legally married to a man named Jason Reed since 8 years ago. They never divorced. The marriage is still valid." I read the certificate with trembling hands. There was her name, her signature, the date, the 14th of March 2017. "That means—" my voice cracked. "That her relationship with Andrew is legally invalid." "Exactly," Rick replied. "If they got married tomorrow, it would be bigamy, a crime." He took out more papers. "But there is more, much more," he continued with a furrowed brow. "In 2019, Houston, Texas, Vanessa was reported by a woman named Patricia Oswald, charges fraud and theft. Vanessa lived with that woman's son, convinced the family she needed help, and over the course of 6 months, tried to seize a family property valued at $300,000. The family paid her $20,000 to leave and never return. I felt nauseous. In 2021, in Phoenix, there was another report, this time from a 60-year-old man named Michael Torres. Vanessa became his girlfriend, moved into his house, and in less than a year, emptied his bank account. Siwen Mayuan. More papers, more reports, more victims. In 2022, in Denver, another entire family, Rick continued. She convinced them she was a real estate agent and got $35,000 out of them as a deposit for a house that never existed. Every document was like a hammer blow to the chest. And now she is here, Rick finished, with your son, following the exact same pattern she has used for years. I couldn't breathe. Literally, I couldn't get air into my lungs. Andrew was the only thing I managed to say. Andrew is with a professional scammer, a predator who chooses vulnerable victims and squeezes them until they are empty. Rick leaned toward me. Susan, this woman is dangerous. She doesn't just want to steal your house. This is what she does. It's her way of life. And the husband? Jason Reed? I asked with a barely audible voice. We located him, he replied. He lives in Houston, works as a mechanic. When my investigator spoke to him, he said Vanessa disappeared 3 years ago without a trace. Took money, jewelry, documents. He looked for her for months, but finally gave up. I didn't want to spend money on lawyers for someone I never want to see again, were his words. Rick put a photograph on the desk. A man in his 40s, tanned, in mechanic's overalls, standing in front of a shop. He is willing to testify if necessary to confirm that the marriage is still valid. I leaned back in the chair, feeling my body weigh tons. I have to tell Andrew. Susan, Rick said slowly. Think carefully. When you tell him this, his world is going to collapse. You must be prepared. And what am I supposed to do? Let that woman keep manipulating him? Let her finish destroying him? No. But you need a plan, because when Vanessa knows you discovered the truth, she could become dangerous. She already is, I answered, almost in a whisper. Rick nodded. That's why we must act with intelligence. With strategy. He closed the folder. I'm going to prepare all the legal documentation. We will file a formal complaint, forgery, fraud, attempted dispossession. But in the meantime, you need to stay calm at home. Don't let her suspect. I don't know if I can do it. You have to do it, Susan, because if she feels cornered, we don't know what she is capable of. I left the office with the folder under my arm, feeling like I wasn't carrying papers, but molten lead. I drove back home in a fog. My mind replayed the images of all those reports, all those victims, all those destroyed families. And now, it was us. When I arrived, the house was silent. Too silent. I went up the stairs, and then I heard it. Voices coming from Andrew's room. Vanessa and Andrew were arguing. I approached without making a sound. The door was ajar. You can't go on like this, Andrew, Vanessa was saying with a frustrated tone. Your mom is suffocating us. Don't start, please, he replied with weariness. We live in her house, eat her food, everything is hers. And until when? She replied, raising her voice. Are we going to depend on her our whole lives? I'm looking for a job, Vanessa. I had an interview last week. And meanwhile, what? We stay here like two parasites? Like teenagers living with their mom? There was a silence. What do you want me to do? Andrew asked, his voice defeated. I want you to be a man, Andrew. Set boundaries. Tell her that this house can be ours if she deeds it to us. Anyway, it's going to be yours when. She stopped, but she didn't need to finish the sentence. When I die, I'm not going to ask her that, he replied with weak firmness. Then we will never have anything of our own. We will never be independent. Pause. Sometimes I think you love your mom more than me, she said venomously. Don't say that. It's the truth. You always defend her. You're always on her side. And us, Andrew? What about our future? I couldn't listen anymore. I backed away without making a sound. I went into my room. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed. The folder was still in my hands. And then, something inside me finally broke. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't drama. It was a silence so deep it hurt to breathe. It was a dry silence, like the cracking of a branch breaking under too much weight. For 2 years I had endured it. I had stayed silent. I had been understanding. I had allowed them to treat me like a burden in my own home, because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law, because I didn't want to lose my son. But I had already lost him. I lost him the day he chose to believe her instead of me. I lost him the day he saw me eat alone at the breakfast bar and said nothing. I lost him the day he heard her call me Mom with that condescending tone and just smiled. I opened the folder again. I looked at all those reports, all those victims, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be just one more. I wasn't going to end up like those people, dispossessed, humiliated, destroyed. If Vanessa wanted war, she was going to get it. But it would be on my terms, on my terrain. And she had no idea who she had messed with, because I was Susan Miller. The woman who built her house with her own hands, the woman who survived the death of her husband, the woman who raised her son alone, and women like me don't surrender. We rise. That night, I didn't go down for dinner. I stayed in my room planning every move, every step, every play, because Vanessa was about to discover something none of her other victims had taught her. Old lionesses are the most dangerous. The next morning, I went down to breakfast with a smile that took me 20 minutes to practice in front of the mirror, but I needed it to be perfect, credible. Vanessa looked up from her phone when I entered the kitchen. Her eyes scanned me with distrust. "Good morning," I said with a cheerful voice. Too cheerful for someone who hadn't slept all night. "Good morning, Mom," she replied cautiously. I poured myself coffee, sat at the table, and then dropped the bomb I had prepared. "I've been thinking," I said, stirring the sugar calmly, "about what you said the other day regarding the house." Vanessa tensed immediately. "I didn't mean to offend you, Mom." "You didn't offend me," I replied, taking a sip of coffee. "You're right. This house is too big for me alone, and you two have been here 2 years. Maybe it's time to make some changes." Vanessa's eyes shined like a shark smelling blood. "Changes?" she asked, feigning surprise. "I'm old, Vanessa. Tired. At my age, maintaining a property this size is exhausting." I sighed dramatically. Maybe it would be good to consider selling it or doing something different with it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the calculations, the possibilities. "Well," she said, trying to sound casual, "if you need help with that, Andrew and I can support you. Look at options, talk to agents." "Yes, perhaps," I replied, leaving the cup on the table. "But I don't want to rush. I need to think it over carefully." I got up, leaving her with the doubt, with the hook set, but without biting yet. Perfect. That same afternoon, while Vanessa went out with her friends and Andrew was at another interview, I made my real move. I called Rick. "I need you to investigate one more thing," I told him. "I want to know exactly how much money Vanessa has spent in the last 2 years. Every big purchase, every payment, everything." "Why?" he asked. "Because if she owes almost $40,000, that money came from somewhere, and I want to know where." Rick fell silent. "Do you think she's stealing from you?" "I think I need to know." 2 days later, I had the answer. Rick came to my house on a Thursday afternoon, knowing I would be alone. He brought another folder, thinner, yes, but just as devastating. "We found movements on Vanessa's credit cards that match specific dates," Rick told me, showing me the statements. "Look at these purchases. Furniture for $2,200, clothes for $1,300, a TV for $2,500, jewelry for $1,000. Everything she has brought into this house," I murmured. "Exactly. But here comes the interesting part," he continued, pointing at the dates. "These payments were made 1 or 2 days after you made cash withdrawals from your account." I froze. "How do you know when I make withdrawals?" "Because my investigator spoke to your bank manager. Since it involves a potential fraud case, he agreed to review your history, and we found a pattern. He showed me a list. Dates of my withdrawals and dates of Vanessa's purchases, almost always 1 or 2 days apart. Susan, where do you keep your cash?" I felt my blood turn to ice. "In a safe in my bedroom closet. Does Vanessa know where it is?" "I don't think so. It's hidden behind some boxes." Rick looked at me with those eyes I already knew, the ones that said without words, "You are in more danger than you imagine." "Let's check it now," he ordered firmly. We went up to my room together. I opened the closet, moved the boxes, took out the metal safe box I had bought years ago. I opened it with the key I always kept in my wallet. Inside, there should have been $5,000, my life savings, emergency cash. I counted the bills with trembling hands. $2,500. $2,500 were missing. "It can't be," I whispered. "I always lock it." Rick took the box, examined it, and then pointed to some small marks around the lock. "They forced it," he said. "Probably with a pick or some thin tool. Then they locked it again so you wouldn't notice." I sat on the bed. My legs wouldn't hold me. "She's robbing me," I said aloud. She doesn't just plan to sell my house, she's robbing me directly. Yes, Rick replied calmly, and this is enough to add theft to the charges. He sat next to me. Susan, we already have evidence of everything: forgery of documents, attempted fraud, theft. It's time to act. Not yet, I said. He looked surprised. What do you mean, not yet? Not yet, I repeated, feeling a new hardness inside me like steel. Because if I report her now, she's going to say she didn't know anything, that it was a misunderstanding, that I gave her permission. She's going to cry, she's going to pretend to be the victim, and Andrew will defend her. Then what do you propose? I propose we give her more rope. Let her believe her plan is working. And when she's most confident, when she thinks she's already won, I paused. We spring the trap. Rick watched me for a long time. Are you sure? Completely. This will require you to act, to pretend, to play the game. I know. And you'll have to be prepared for Andrew to see things that will destroy him. That sentence hurt, but I nodded. It's the only way for him to see the truth. Rick took out his phone. Then let's do it right. My investigator is going to install hidden security cameras in your house. Small cameras, strategically placed. Living room, kitchen, your bedroom. We're going to record every move Vanessa makes, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation or theft. Is that legal? In your own house? Recording someone committing crimes against you is completely legal, he explained, and it will be irrefutable proof. I stood up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden, where David and I had planted the magnolia tree when Andrew was born. Now that tree was huge. Its branches shaded half the yard. Do it, I said without turning. Install the cameras, record everything. And what are you going to do? Rick asked. I turned to him. I'm going to give her the greatest gift a scammer can receive. What gift? A victim who seems weak and about to make a huge mistake. The following days were pure theater. I became the confused old woman Vanessa had always wanted me to be. I started forgetting things, names, dates, where I left my keys. Oh, I forget everything lately, I would say with nervous laughter when she looked at me with that calculating expression. I watched her mentally note every lapse. I began leaving documents by accident on my desk. Bank papers, statements, even the old will where I left everything to Andrew. One afternoon, while I was in the garden, I heard my bedroom door open. The cameras Rick had installed recorded every second. That night, I reviewed the footage on my computer. There was Vanessa entering my room, going through drawers, photographing my documents with her phone. I felt disgust, but also a cold satisfaction. Every second of that video was proof. I continued with my performance. I started making comments into the air, feigning exhaustion from errands and paperwork. Oh, Vanessa, I told her one afternoon while she pretended to help me organize documents. Sometimes I think I should give Andrew general power of attorney so he can handle everything. I'm too old for these things. Her eyes lit up instantly. That's not a bad idea, Mom. That way you could stop worrying. Yes, maybe, I replied, leaving the sentence hanging. That same afternoon, the living room camera recorded a phone conversation of hers. Yes, the old lady is cracking. Give it a week and I'll have the power of attorney. No, the son is useless. He does what I tell him. $680,000. I told you. Yes, same plan as Denver, but this time it won't fail. Rick was right. This was what she did. Her perfected method. But there was something else I needed to know. Something that bothered me like a thorn stuck in my side. Rick, I said on the phone that night, I need you to investigate one more thing. Tell me, Vanessa's husband, Jason Reed. I want you to go see him personally. Show him photos of Andrew. I want to know if Vanessa has told him anything about us. Why? He asked. Because I have a feeling. 3 days later, Rick returned with information that left me breathless. I spoke with Jason Reed, he told me. I showed him photos of Andrew. And do you know what he told me? I shook my head. That Vanessa contacted him 2 months ago. She asked him to lend her $2,000, telling him she had an investment opportunity. Did he give it to her? No. But he told me something more interesting. Vanessa mocked Andrew. What? She told him verbatim that she had found a fool with a house and an old lady on her way out, and that in a few months she would have enough money to disappear again. I felt the blow to my stomach. Not for me, I already knew who Vanessa was. but for Andrew. My son, the man who worked 18 hours a day sending resumes, who stayed up worrying about his future, who loved that woman with every fiber of his being. To her, he was just a useful idiot, a means, a stepping stone in her chain of victims. Jason is willing to testify, continued Rick, to declare everything Vanessa told him and confirm their marriage remains valid. Good, I replied with a voice colder than I had ever heard myself use. Because it's almost time. Time for what? To spring the trap. That night, I sat in front of the computer and reviewed everything we had gathered. Videos of Vanessa stealing from me, recordings of her conversations planning the fraud, every piece of the puzzle, forged documents, evidence of her valid marriage, testimonies from previous victims, statements from the notary, bank statements. It was enough, more than enough. But something was missing. And then I had an idea Rick called risky and potentially explosive, but which I called poetic justice. The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. I was going to give Vanessa exactly what she wanted, a weak, confused victim ready to be manipulated until the end. And then, when she believed she had won, I would show her who had been playing whom the whole time. But for it to work, I needed to act better than ever. Rick, I told him when we met at a coffee shop far from my house, I need you to contact the buyer. That Mr. Henderson, the one Vanessa brought to see the house. What for? He asked, frowning. To tell him the owner is interested in selling, that he should communicate directly with Vanessa to coordinate a second visit. You're going to give her more ammunition, he warned me. I'm going to give her all the rope in the world. And when she's completely tangled, I'm going to pull. Rick understood immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. You're sharper than I remembered, Susan. Life taught me to be. 2 days later, Mr. Henderson contacted Vanessa. I heard the whole conversation from my bedroom thanks to the hidden cameras. Miss Cole, he said. Mr. Sterling contacted me. He mentioned the owner is ready to move forward with the sale. Vanessa's voice almost sang with excitement. Yes, it's true. My mother-in-law finally understood it's best for everyone. Perfect. Could we coordinate a second visit? This time I want to bring my architect to check the structure. Of course, she replied. How does next Friday afternoon sound, when my mother-in-law is more rested? Code for when she is more confused. Excellent. See you Friday at 4. When Vanessa hung up, she squealed with excitement. Then she dialed another number. Babe. It worked. The buyer wants to see the house again. No. Your mom is completely on board. I tell you, she's already giving in. I just need you to convince her too. Yes, sweet talk her. Tell her it's for our own good. My son, my own son, being used as the final tool of manipulation. That night, Andrew came into my room. He knocked softly before entering. Mom, can I talk to you? Of course, son. I closed the book I was pretending to read. Sit down. He sat on the edge of the bed with that slumped posture he had when something worried him. Vanessa told me you're considering selling the house. Ah, yes. I sighed dramatically. I'm tired, Andrew. This house is too much for me alone, and you two need to start your life. Mom, you don't have to do this for us. But I want to. I took his hand cold as marble. You are my only son. I want to see you happy, stable. And if selling this house gives you and Vanessa the chance to start over, I saw the conflict in his eyes. A part of him knew something was wrong. But another part, the part that loved Vanessa, the part that wanted to believe in her, was winning the battle. Are you sure, Mom? Completely, I lied without hesitation. Just promise me something. Anything. That you will take care of the money. That you won't waste it. That you will build something good with it. Andrew hugged me. I promise, Mom. I promise we'll do things right. When he left my room, I had to bite my lip until it bled not to cry. Because my son, my good, naive son, had no idea he was being the final piece of the fraud. The following days were pure theater. I began acting as if I were in the early stages of dementia. I got confused in conversations, forgot names, repeated questions. One afternoon, while we were alone in the kitchen, I dropped the perfect bomb. Vanessa, I said with a trembling voice, I need you to help me with something. Of course, Mom. Tell me. It's just that there are so many papers, so many things to sign. The bank called me yesterday and I didn't understand anything they said. I put my hand to my forehead. Sometimes I feel my head doesn't work like before. Vanessa approached with that fake compassion she had perfected. Don't worry, Mom. That's what Andrew and I are here for. To help you. Really? I asked with eyes full of tears. Because I've been thinking, maybe I should give you power of attorney so you can handle things, I said with a shaking voice. You're younger. You understand all this technology and modern paperwork better. Vanessa's eyes lit up like it was Christmas. If you think it's necessary, Mom, I'd be happy to support you. I don't want to be a burden. You could never be a burden, she replied, taking my hands with hers cold, calculating. Let me help you. We'll go to the notary together. We'll fix everything with legal papers so you can rest easy. Would you do that for me? Of course, Mom. We're family. Family. The word tasted like poison. Then we'll go tomorrow, I said calmly. We'll get everything settled. That night I called Rick. She's going to try to take me to a notary tomorrow. Which one? I don't know, but I bet it won't be a real one. Or it will be some corrupt notary working with her. Are you going to go? I'm going to go. And you're going to follow us, Rick. This is dangerous, I know, but I need proof that she is trying to complete the fraud. I need it recorded, documented, irrefutable. There was silence on the other end. All right. But you're going to wear a hidden wire, and I'll be half a block away the whole time. The next morning, Vanessa was radiant. Mom! Good thing you're up. I got an appointment at the notary for 11. So fast? The notary is very sought after. We were lucky he had an opening, she said, with that smile confirming it probably wasn't a real notary. I dressed slowly, exaggerating every movement as if it cost me effort. Rick had given me a small device that looked like a decorative brooch, but was actually a camera with a microphone. Do I look okay? I asked Vanessa, pointing to the brooch on my blouse. You look beautiful, Mom, said without imagining she was recording her own sentence. We got into Vanessa's car, a red compact she had bought on sale months ago. She drove with the smile of a cat that has just caught its prey. You'll see, Mom. After today, everything will be easier. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. Thank you, daughter, I replied, using that word on purpose. I don't know what I'd do without you. The notary office was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, an old building with peeling paint. Nothing like the serious offices I knew. We went up to the second floor. A rusty plaque on the door said, Alan Bernal, Notary Public, Suite 243. We entered a small, poorly lit office smelling of mildew. A man in his 50s with a belly and a cheap suit received us with an oily smile. Mrs. Susan Miller. What a pleasure to have you here. Come in, come in. He pointed to a chair across from his desk. Vanessa sat next to me, holding my arm as if I were a child needing guidance. Well, the supposed notary began. I understand you wish to grant general power of attorney to Miss Cole. That's right, I said with a weak voice. I'm so tired. I need help. Perfect. I have the document ready here. I just need you to read and sign it. He took out some papers and passed them to me. I started reading slowly, squinting as if it were hard work. It was exactly what I expected. A sweeping power of attorney giving Vanessa total control over all my assets to sell, mortgage, or dispose of as she wished. Is it ready? I asked with feigned confusion. But we just arrived. Miss Cole sent me all the information in advance, the fake notary explained, rushing the process. You know, at your age, it's better not to tire you with so much paperwork. At my age? How considerate, I murmured. Vanessa squeezed my arm. Sign here, Mom, and here too. I took the pen, brought it close to the paper, and then stopped. You know what? I said, putting the pen on the desk. I think I better think about it a little more, I said calmly. The air in the office changed immediately. Excuse me? Vanessa asked, her voice tense. It's just a very big decision. Maybe I should talk to Andrew first. But you already talked to Andrew, Mom. He agrees. Oh, did I? I feigned confusion, frowning. I don't remember. Last night. Mom, did you already forget? Her tone was starting to get impatient. The supposed notary intervened. Mrs. Miller, I recommend you sign today. These procedures are complicated to reschedule, but I'm not sure. I put my hands to my head. Today my mind is very confused. Maybe another day. No! Vanessa almost shouted, then immediately tried to compose herself. I mean, Mom, we're already here. The gentleman did us the favor of receiving us. Just take the pen and sign. It's for your own good. For my own good. I looked her directly in the eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I let her see something real in me. Something hard, something dangerous. Or for yours. Vanessa paled. The fake notary tried to intervene again, but I had already stood up. You know what? I think I better go. I don't feel well. Mom, wait! I said I'm leaving. My voice sounded firmer than ever. I walked to the door. Vanessa followed me, trying to stop me, but I was already in the hallway. I went down the stairs as fast as I could. I heard her voice calling me from behind, but I didn't stop. I went out to the street, and there was Rick waiting for me in his car half a block away, exactly as we had planned. I got in quickly. Drive. He obeyed without asking questions. I looked in the side mirror. Vanessa had come out too, searching with her eyes, phone in hand, with that look of poorly disguised panic. Did you get everything? Rick asked. I touched the brooch on my blouse. Every word. Then it's almost time. Yes, I said, feeling my heart beat strong, but steady. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Vanessa tried to approach as if nothing had happened. 3 days of forced smiles and questions disguised as concern. Mom, are you feeling okay? You seemed very upset that day at the notary. I'm perfectly fine, I responded with a neutral voice. I gave her no explanations. I gave her no peace. I only gave her silence. And silence, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon of all. I watched her squirm, watched her think, try to understand what had gone wrong, if I suspected something, if she should change her strategy. But it was already too late. On Wednesday afternoon, while Vanessa spoke on the phone in a low voice from the living room, I was in my room coordinating the final move. Rick, I said into the phone, it's time. Organize the dinner for Friday. Are you completely sure? There will be no turning back after this. I have never been more sure in my life. Okay. I'll contact everyone involved. Did Jason Reed confirm? Confirmed. He's coming from Houston. And Mr. Henderson also confirmed, although he's still confused about why I invited him. He'll understand on Friday. And Andrew, did you tell him? That question hurt. No. He'll find out along with everyone else. I need him to see it all at the same time. It's the only way. There was silence. This is going to hurt, Susan. I know, I replied serenely. But the pain of truth is better than the comfort of a lie. Thursday night, during dinner, I threw the final hook. Vanessa, Andrew, I said while we ate in silence, I want to organize a family dinner on Friday. Both looked at me surprised. A dinner? Andrew asked. Yes. I've been thinking a lot these days, and I think it's time to resolve some things, to talk about the future with clarity. I looked at them both. I want to invite some important people to make decisions together as a family. Vanessa recovered her smile immediately. That sounds perfect, Mom. Who do you want to invite? My lawyer, Richard Sterling. Mr. Henderson, the buyer you brought. The buyer? And the notary who will advise us on the documents. I paused. And some other people I consider should be present. Other people? Yes, I replied slowly. I already contacted them. They all confirmed. Andrew frowned. Mom, who else? It's a surprise, I smiled. But I promise you that on Friday everything will be very clear. Vanessa tried to hide her unease, but I saw it. That shadow of doubt crossing her face. Sounds good, she said finally. Excellent. Dinner will be at 7. Dress nicely. It's going to be a memorable night. She had no idea how memorable it would be. Friday dawned with a clear sky, ironic considering the storm that was about to break. I spent the morning cooking. I prepared the dishes David loved, the ones I made for special occasions. Vanessa watched me from the kitchen doorway with a confused expression. Need help, Mom? No thanks. Today I want to do it myself. I like cooking. It reminds me of better times. At 5 p.m., I started setting the dining room. I took out the fine china, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses. The table looked beautiful, elegant, dignified, like a stage for what was to come. At 6, I took a long bath. I put on a navy blue dress I hadn't worn since David's funeral. I did my makeup carefully and pulled my hair into an elegant bun. When I went down, Andrew looked at me in amazement. "Mom, you look beautiful." "Thank you, son," I said, kissing his cheek. "Today is an important day." Vanessa came down minutes later. A tight red dress, heels, too much makeup. She looked like what she was, a woman desperate to impress. At 7 sharp, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said. It was Rick, impeccable in a suit, briefcase in hand, serious expression. "Susan." He kissed my cheek. "Ready?" "Ready." We entered the dining room. Andrew and Vanessa were already seated. "Andrew, Vanessa." "You know Mr. Sterling." They greeted each other with tense courtesy. The doorbell rang again. It was Mr. Henderson, the buyer, confused but polite. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for the invitation. I'm not sure I understand." "Everything will be clear, Mr. Henderson. Please, come in." I sat him at the table. Vanessa watched him with a weary air. The doorbell rang again. This time, Mr. Carty, the real notary. "Mr. Carty, thank you for coming. When you explained the situation, I couldn't refuse." Vanessa paled considerably. "Mom," said Andrew worriedly, "what is happening?" And then, the guest no one expected arrived. I answered the door myself. I opened it, and there was Jason Reed, Vanessa's legal husband. A 42-year-old man, tanned, face marked by sun and work, wearing clean jeans and a dress shirt. He had cleaned up for the occasion. "Mrs. Miller," he said respectfully. "Jason, thank you for coming from so far. It's the least I can do." I led him to the dining room. When Vanessa saw him, the color drained from her face entirely. "Jason?" she whispered. Andrew looked between them, confused. "Mom, who is that man?" "Sit down, Andrew," I replied with a firm voice. "I want you to meet Jason Reed, Vanessa's husband." The silence that followed was absolute. "What?" Andrew's voice came out as barely a thread. Vanessa jumped up. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "Sit down." My voice cut the air like a whip. Something in my tone made her obey. She sat down again. I stood at the head of the table. Everyone was looking at me. I only had eyes for Vanessa. "This dinner is about the truth," I began. "A truth that has been buried under lies for 2 years." "Mom, what are you talking about?" Andrew seemed lost. "Let me show you." I nodded at Rick. Rick took his laptop out of his briefcase and placed it on the table. He connected it to a small, portable projector pointed at the white wall of the dining room. "We are going to watch a movie," I said. "The movie of how Vanessa Cole has been destroying our family." I pressed play. The first image was a marriage certificate, Vanessa and Jason. Date: the 14th of March 2017. "Vanessa is legally married," I said. "She never divorced. Your relationship with her, Andrew, is legally invalid. You are the lover, not the husband." Andrew sat motionless, as if struck by a blow to the head. The next image: bank statements, Vanessa's debts, $40,000. "This explains why she is here. Not for love, but for money." Then the recordings began, phone conversations where Vanessa's voice is heard saying, "The old lady is cracking and same plan as Denver." Then the videos of her entering my room, searching my drawers, photographing my documents, stealing from my safe. She had taken $2,500 of my savings. And finally, the forged documents. The power of attorney with my imitated signature, the fake letter to the notary. She tried to take my house using fake papers, forgery, fraud, theft. Every image was a blow. Every document, a stab. Andrew literally stopped breathing. He sat paralyzed, staring at the wall, watching his reality crumble piece by piece. Vanessa tried to get up, but Mr. Carty spoke. "Miss Cole, I recommend you remain seated. I have already filed a formal complaint with the district attorney. An arrest warrant is being processed." She collapsed into the chair. "No, it wasn't," was all she managed to say. I turned to Jason. "Mr. Reed, could you tell us what Vanessa said to you when she contacted you 2 months ago?" Jason nodded, looking at her with a mixture of pity and contempt. "She told me she had found a fool with a house and an old lady on her last legs, and that in a few months she would have enough money to disappear again. She asked me to lend her $2,000 to advance the plan." Andrew produced a sound between a sob and a choked scream. "Andrew!" Vanessa exclaimed and tried to touch him. But he pulled away as if her touch burned. "Don't touch me," he said, voice trembling. "Don't you dare." I turned to Mr. Henderson, who was watching everything wide-eyed. "Mr. Henderson, you were contacted by this woman to buy a property she has no right to sell. The $20,000 you gave as a deposit was stolen. Mr. Sterling will help you recover it and file your own complaint." The man nodded mechanically, still in shock. Finally, I turned to Vanessa. She was crying, tears running over her perfect makeup, leaving black streaks on her cheeks. "Please," she begged. "Can I explain everything?" "There is nothing to explain," I said with an icy voice. "You are a professional scammer, a criminal who has destroyed entire families, and you thought I would be your next victim." "Mom, please." "Don't call me Mom," I snapped. "You are not family. You never were. You are a predator who saw weakness and attacked, but you made a mistake." "Which one?" she stammered. "Assuming that because I am 68 years old, I am finished, that I am weak, defenseless, that you could manipulate me and destroy me without consequences." I smiled, without warmth. "You were wrong, because I built this house with my own hands. I survived things that would have broken you into 1,000 pieces, and I am not going to allow a common criminal to take everything I fought for." "Rick, call the authorities," I said. Vanessa stood up suddenly. "Andrew, say something! Defend me!" All eyes turned to my son. Andrew sat with his hands on the table, looking at them as if they weren't his. His eyes were red, his face shattered. When he spoke, his voice broke completely. "Was any of it ever true?" Andrew asked. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I loved you," she lied. The word hit like a whip. It had all been a lie from the start. He stood up slowly, walked toward her, and for an instant, I thought he would hug her to forgive her, to show himself weak as she believed. But he stopped in front of her and said the only thing that mattered: "I want you out of this house right now." The shout echoed in the dining room. Vanessa stepped back, tripping over her chair. She looked for support in the room, but found only accusation everywhere. "You have no right," she began. But then the authorities arrived. 2 police officers and a detective entered with the warrant. "Vanessa Kogan," said one of them, while she nodded weakly. "You are under arrest for forgery of public documents, fraud, and theft. You have the right to remain silent." They handcuffed her right there on the hardwood floor I laid with my own hands. As they took her away, she looked at me one last time. There was no pleading in her eyes, just pure hatred. "This isn't over," she hissed. "For you, it is," I replied. "It ended the day you decided Susan Miller would be an easy victim." They took her away. The door closed, and the silence left behind was deafening. When everyone left, the house was calm, a different silence than before. It was no longer full of tension or manipulation. It was an empty, hollow silence. Andrew was still sitting in the dining room. He hadn't moved since they took Vanessa away. He just stared at his hands on the table, as if looking for answers in the lines of his palms. I sat across from him. "Son, no." His voice was cutting. I waited. The minutes passed like hours. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. "How long did you know?" "Weeks," I replied calmly. "Rick investigated everything after I found the forged documents. And you didn't tell me anything. You needed to see it with your own eyes. If I had just told you, you wouldn't have believed me." He ran his hands over his face. "You're right. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have defended her." A bitter laugh escaped his throat. "How could I be so naive?" "You're not an idiot," I told him. "You were manipulated by a professional. She knows exactly which buttons to push. I lived with her for 2 years, Mom. I slept beside her. I told her I loved her." His voice broke. "How did I not see anything?" "Because love doesn't see, and she was very good at what she did." Andrew shook his head. "I treated you badly. I let her treat you badly. I saw you eat alone and said nothing. I saw how she disrespected you." His voice broke again. "How can you even look at me?" I got up, went around the table, knelt beside his chair, and took his face in my hands. "Because you are my son, and sons make mistakes, but they also learn from them. I don't deserve your forgiveness." Forgiveness isn't something you deserve, Andrew. It's something given because you love. I wiped a tear from his cheek. But I need you to understand something, son. This cannot happen again. I need you to learn to value what you have, to respect who has given you everything. He nodded, crying like he hadn't since he was a child. I'm sorry, Mom. Really, I'm sorry. I know, son, I know. I hugged him, and in that hug, I felt everything, the pain, the betrayal, the forgiveness, and the hope. I'm going to make it up to you, Mom, he whispered against my shoulder. I don't know how, but I will. I know how, I said, pulling away. Are you going to move? He froze. What? I took an envelope out of my pocket. I had prepared it days ago. Years ago, I bought a small condo, an investment. It's in a good area, 2 bedrooms. The deed is here. I put the envelope in front of him. It's yours. But with conditions. Mom, I can't accept this. Condition number 1. You are going to live alone. You are going to learn who you are without depending on anyone. Not me, not any woman. He swallowed hard, nodded. Condition number 2. You are going to work. I don't care at what, but you are going to support yourself with your own effort. I will. Condition number 3. Every Sunday you are going to come here for dinner, and we are going to rebuild what broke between mother and son like a real family. His eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this after everything? Because you are my son, and I believe in second chances. I stood up. But this is your only chance, Andrew. There won't be a third. He took the envelope with trembling hands, opened it, saw the deed. Thank you, Mom. I swear I won't let you down. More importantly, son, don't let yourself down. He stayed that night, his last night in that house as a resident. The next morning he packed his things. It wasn't much a suitcase, some boxes. At the door, he hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. And I love you, son. Always. He left, and I closed the door knowing that for the first time in 2 years, my house was mine again. The following months brought peace. Vanessa was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Forgery, fraud, theft. Her history with previous victims weighed heavily on the sentence. Mr. Henderson recovered his money. He even thanked me for unmasking her. Jason Reed finally filed for divorce. And I renovated my house. Not the structure, but the soul. I painted the walls, changed the furniture, eliminated every trace of Vanessa. I turned the study into a small architectural workshop. I started giving free classes to older women who wanted to learn design. Andrew kept his word. Every Sunday he arrived with flowers or sweet bread. We ate together. We talked. For real. Little by little, very slowly, we rebuilt what had broken. Today, as I write this, sitting in my garden looking at the magnolia tree David and I planted 43 years ago, I understand something fundamental. True wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you don't allow to be taken from you. Your dignity, your peace, your home, your soul. Vanessa tried to take everything from me, but she forgot something essential. Women like me aren't made of easy days. We are forged in storms, and when the storm passes, we remain standing, stronger than ever. Sometimes stories don't end when the doors close, but when the heart learns to see differently. Every family, every love, every loss leaves a mark. And maybe that is what unites us most, learning to heal, to forgive, and to keep walking. Thank you for being here, for listening to my story. Have you ever experienced something similar? And tell me, if you were in my place, what would you do? I would love to read your opinion in the comments, because here in Grandma's Vault of Stories, we don't just tell stories, we share them to heal together. If this story touched your heart, subscribe so you don't miss the next ones, and share this video. Perhaps your words today will give hope to someone who needs it.